Hello everyone! So today I have something really amazing to show you. It's a raid guide. It's kind of like the basics that's going to help a lot of people, I think, to well, perform better in raids really. It's made by Ewas and aceofpops, so I'm gonna let Ewas do the intro now for the guide and we'll take it from there.
Hello, I'm Ewas. I'm here with aceofpops to introduce our guide to raids. In this mini guide, we cover raid team gears, so your team leader as well as your team members, which is the AI. We will be covering boss mechanics, which includes how to fight the boss, how to train properly, and how to gain more damage through your gameplay, as well as raid balancing, which is what to do to get the most you can out of raid together with your team.
Perfect! Well, let's move on to the first slide then. Before going there, I also wanted to add that you can actually download all these images just below the first cover picture, so you can post them on your own guild Discord and share them around there. And yeah, I would love for you to do that, of course, as we want as many people to benefit from this as possible. So moving on.
So first of all is the raid team gear, and specifically for the leader, the hero that you pilot. It's very important to know how to gear your heroes. For the weapon, you would want the highest flat attack possible and the highest weapon skill region possible. You won't care about the rest. If you're just wanting to raid, you won't care about the defense and the HP. Obviously, with your lead hero, you would need to weapon skill, and the highest weapon skill region possible will help you have easier time dealing with the bosses. Skill damage can be pretty hard to roll for because it's most likely a sub option, and that would be hard to get. If you can get it, that would be pretty nice, but if you can't, it's fine. You should just focus on the flat attack and the weapon skill region.
Nice. As for cards, double crit is mostly used on leads, so you can't really go wrong with that. There are some math to it though, we're gonna go through that in just a moment. But if you're like, lazy or whatever and don't really wanna care that much about it, then you can just put on double crit, and it's gonna work. Lead heroes that have high skill damage, such as Garam or Lilith, I think, that we've seen it on too, they use 2 skill cards instead, and that obviously means that you have less normal attack cards on your party, so you can get those out there and balance it that way. So we'll dive into that. We actually did a lot of research, and I had some help from a friend at Chocky that's also, he's actually the founder of this spreadsheet, and we did some checks on trying to find the breakpoints, because there's obviously, should you use double crit card, should you use the double attack cards, or a mix of them, the attack 7 or the crit card, and we did actually find something really interesting. So you can see an example on the screen on how we did it, and I'm just not gonna go into really deep into this because there was a lot of numbers in this long story. However, we did find the breakpoints, and that's basically what this note that you can see below the image means. So you have, if you have 76% attack from all sources, and what I mean about that, by the way, is that that if you go in game and see where I'm navigating now, you go to the hero thing, then you go to the arrow down there. You can see there's a long list of buffs that you have, and that's from all the sources in the game. What you want to do is to add those together, and you're gonna come up with a number that's going to be the result of all the attack you have there, the combined attack basically. To make things easy, we also used a character with 10% crit. Some characters have more, some have less, yes, but we just wanted to keep it simple, so it's more of a rule of thumb, this thing. It's not gonna be 100%. However, if there's some slight difference in the numbers, where the crit is, it's not gonna make or break. Obviously playing well is gonna make a whole lot bigger difference than a few percentages here and there, but it's a nice guidance anyways. So as you can see here, if you have 76% attack or less, that would probably go for the newer players in the game. Then that's the breakpoint, 76% attack for when attack and attack 7 or crit attack is equal. After that, crit attack will be more worth it. This is because the attack that you have is pretty low, so it's going to make a bigger difference, if that makes sense. It's a 12% attack versus what you already have, right? And that's pretty much what that means. If you have 161% or more, that's for the later game players, then 2 crit cards would be the better option. And if you have 142% attack from all sources and a crit buff, then the breakpoint is, like we saw there, 142%, and that's where crit attack 7 will be better. If you have less attack than that, then you want to go for the attack and attack 7. Also, if you do have a crit buff in the party, a double crit cards is never going to be better than crit attack 7. That's the way you want to go. Also, if you do happen to run with 2 crit buffs, then attack, like a normal 5% attack, and attack 7 is always better than even having 1 crit card, because you just have so much crit. However, you don't want to do that in the first place, of course, because stacking crit is not more beneficial than anything else, and we obviously have all the ratings. But just if you find yourself running that, then just keep that in mind. There's also the segment of skill cards. So this is not calculated, it's more like a theory of ours that we, after a lot of discussions and things, if you are running Garam, Veronica or Lillith, then you do want to go with 2 skill cards. That means you can use the other cards on your party, which is like a really nice game, because that means less 5% cards. I do have written Yuse with a question mark too, because I'm actually not sure about that. I've seen some Koreans going with 1 skill card and 1 crit card on her, but I really don't know. Same thing for MK2 or Clara. We haven't really used those yet, at least in global. We are gonna maybe see some of those teams in the next raid, but until then we're just gonna keep it as unsure for now. Also, we can't stress enough that you can obviously try this out in practice mode, and you can just do a bunch of runs and you can just see what actually yields the highest damage. Because you will see each individual damage of the team as well, so it's actually like a really good tool to check those kind of things as well. So don't like blindly following all this, but it's a good guideline, and then you can kind of work from there, I guess, and try it out yourself if you really want to squeeze out that extra damage.
For accessories, Minotaur necklace is the best accessory for any lead hero. It doesn't need to be MLB at first. You can just try to roll for a good attack, good skill damage, and good weapon skill regen. If you get anything above 15% attack, that would be awesome. If you get 17, you can lock it. But that's all. They're pretty hard to get, depending on your rank. On average, I'd say you can get 1 per month. First, just try to get 1 of each element you're running in your teams, and then start MLBing them. It's better to MLB them with the dupes. I don't suggest using hammers on them. Use those for your weapons, and that's the best accessory. In some cases, you can use MLB sharpshooter. I've only seen that in 2 raids so far, but I've seen some people use sharpshooter on MK99. It did more damage than just a normal mirror necklace. You can just try around. If you don't have a Minotaur necklace, you can try with the sharpshooter. But your other best bet for the water team, this is like a rare item, if I would say. It's like the earth necklace of raids. The ice cream ring, it's easier to max out if you get it. It doesn't need to be MLB, so as the others that are seen in the picture. It's easier to max out. That's only for the water teams, of course. If you don't have that, you can go for the mirror accessory. I know it's pretty hard to roll, but I would say you can try to roll for the 12% or 10% weapon skill regen, lock it, and then try to get the skill damage and the elemental buff. And that would be an offensive mirror necklace that you can use in raid. If you don't have any of those, use a gold pocket watch. Try to get maximum stats on it, but I wouldn't recommend. If you can get an offensive mirror necklace, that would be better. But yeah, your best bet is Minotaur necklace, and try to toy around with the sharpshooter. That could be better for you. And for depending on the teams that you're running, they can also be used in bosses that are not super dependent on timing, like Viper or something that would need like precise timing to cancel an important attack, I would say. So yeah, that's all.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, like A said here, Minotaur definitely is the best one, but they are not that easy to come by, and you obviously want to MLB them eventually, but that's obviously really hard, either hammers or getting dupes. But I think it takes like a month or something to get each of them. So I mean that's a long time if you're not using hammers, right? And I mean you want 6 of them eventually, and then you obviously have to roll them as well. I think rolling for an 18% in general is not that hard, but the issue starts when you have a bunch of them and you only need 1 or 2 elements more, and you want that to roll good. I'm personally having the same issue. Actually, I'm only missing the water one, so I mean getting that is going to be very hard to roll.
Can be
obviously
rough.
yeah, and I mean you want a lot of options change stones for a lot of other things that are obviously more fun to work on. So that's really annoying. As you also said, those mirror accessories. I think that people shouldn't try to chase perfect stats on those because the chance of that happening is so incredibly low. So I think you rather go for like either you want like a tanky one to use for PvP, or you go for a very offensive one for raids and stuff like that. And like you said there, you only need the VSR and elemental attack and skill damage preferably. So I think a really good choice when farming those, by the way, I just got to think of that now, is that you can just farm a bunch of them. You don't have to MLB them at all. The reason for that is obviously that the bonus from MLB is not an offensive buff.
It's just HP, and it only gives defense.
Yeah, it's not gonna like really help you. I mean, I know some bosses can be a little bit more on the damaging sides, but in general, we don't really care about that stuff, right? So what you should do is just farm a bunch of them, see if you can get a 12% VSR option, preferably, lock that thing, and then try to get a high damage, and then you can just lock that as well, of course, and then roll for that skill damage, and I mean, then you're good to go. And of course the pocket watch, like I think we all used the pocket watch early on. It took a very long time for me actually to get mine. Was back when the rerolls didn't exist, because that was actually a thing. But yeah, it's definitely like a good starter item. It's mostly about the VSR really at that point, so just want to be able to chain. But yeah, let's move on to the merchandise.
For merch, there's 2 that you should be focusing on getting. In the sheet, you can see what material you would need to farm them. Mainly, you would need an SSB or a mothership. Try to get like 4 of one and then go to the other, because like it's hard to run both in a raid scenario. SSB, you want to use it when the boss has above 40% health, and the mothership is under 60% health. If you don't have access for any of those for your lead hero, your best bet is a Muriel Cushion, and that's only on the lead. If you don't have access to any of them, I would say Elemental Merch, but that's very unadvisable.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, and also it's obviously a lot easier to build a Muriel Merch, so you're gonna probably have one much sooner than you could have the other 2. And we also had a discussion, just as we did this recording, about having like a 50-50, like having 2 SSBs and 2 MS, but that's gonna kind of limit you to either have bad damage at either the high or the low, because you're gonna like have half of them, or you're going to be wanting to only attack in the middle there when they're between 40 and 60, and that's going to make it probably really stressful for you, since people are just nuking away, and then you miss your opportunity and you actually end up lose damage. So I think it would be better to either decide that you wanted to go for the SSBs and then you try to attack the boss when it's like high HP, or you go for the MS and then go for the low HP there. And having a mix of people in the guild with like different sets of these is also nice, because then you can kind of help each other out. So you have the players with the SSBs go first, and then when the bosses are lower, then other people with MS can take over from there. So you can have like a nice synergy there. But yeah, let's move on.
When it comes to raid team gear, the second most important thing is the non-lead heroes or the AI heroes, as you do not control them. For weapons, you mainly want to focus on the base attack and skill damage. There is no need for a weapon skill regen, because you will not be weapon skilling when it comes to the AI of your team. In general, using the exclusive weapon of the hero is the best, but there is certain cases in which you might want to swap out, or maybe you don't have the weapon for the hero. The cases when you want to swap out is if the X weapon is not aligned to the elemental buff of the team, or it has elemental disadvantage. In that case, you should use the weapon corresponding with the team's element.
Yeah, perfect. And also, there's another thing to keep in mind for AI weapons, and that is if the actual weapon has death threat on it, like Lilith weapon or Naris, then you may want to use that as well. I'm personally a little bit unsure if you do have elemental disadvantage. I know for Lilith you just want to use it regardless. I'm not 100% sure for Nari because it just increases the uptime, not the actual percentage of it. So you may want to try that, but there's a very big chance that Nari may want to use her own weapon even if it is on a, for example, a dark boss. However, Nari is not really part of a dark team, but I mean, if you do end up yourself playing her in that team, then do keep that in mind.
When it comes to accessories, the Sharpshooter is the best for all non-lead heroes. It has the best possible stats because it only covers attack and skill damage. Even when it's not MLB'd, it is better than anything else, but when it is MLB'd, it gives additional critical hit chance. So it is recommended to get 3 Sharpshooters and then MLB each one of them. But in the case you do not have all 3 Sharpshooters, you can use a Ring of Belief or the Greed Earring as a replacement, and they do not need to be in any way limit broken. For cards, you will be using a mixture of attack 5%, attack 7%, and critical hit cards. Mainly, you will be using 2 attack cards as you have limited amount of crit and 7% attacks. It's mostly recommended to use a crit plus 7% attack on the highest DPS AI if your main hero is not using either of them, and if your hero isn't using a double crit for the best damaging AI, it is recommended to use a double crit as it is described in the previous panel about cards that has been talked about in the raid team gear on the team leaders. For merchandise, it is similar to Lead Hero, where the 3-star Statue of Bravery as well as the Mothership Replica are just simply the best raid merch. Even at 3-star, they outclass other merch. Just remember to use them in the appropriate health bracket, which is the Mothership below 60% and then Statue of Bravery above 40%. When it comes to the 4-star shirt and Nari cushion, they are the second best raid merch for non-lead heroes. You should be using them on the highest DPS AI as their damage comes from the amount of DPS the hero has. If you do not have a Statue of Bravery or Mothership that you can use on your AI, nor do you have a 4-star Nari cushion or a shirt, you can always use Elemental merch, which does not need any leveling to be at its best. It only needs to be 4-star.
Yeah, that's perfect. And yeah, it's you don't really have to farm the Nari cushion or T-shirt only for raid, however, though, because like all the resources you're putting into that could have been an SSB or a Mothership, because they're obviously better. So that doesn't really make sense. However, if you have any other reason to farm them and you happen to have them, then don't be shy to use them, of course. We also have this chart. Yeah, it's been linked around on the official Discord many times, but I'm just going to put it up on the screen now, where you can actually see the approximate rankings of the different merchandise against each other, and it's pretty clear which ones are obviously the best ones. And you can also see some breakpoints there, where you can see where they like become better than each other and so on. I'm not going to talk too much about it. I'm just going to let that picture speak for itself, and you can just pause the video here and take a look at that. But let's move on to the next slide.
There is a number of boss mechanics which you should keep in mind whenever you fight a boss, as executing them well will bring your damage up significantly, even if you are not gaining any additional damage from new weapons or new accessories. When it comes to the boss fight itself, you mostly want to weapon skill as soon as it's available. That's why you want to have as much weapon regen speed as you can. But if using the weapon skill will make you miss the second chain, you should wait a bit and hold back the weapon skill until the chain is off cooldown. If you have problems remembering when it's going to happen, or you have problems with timings, you can always look at when exactly you start the chain on the timer in the gameplay itself. As well as heroes with normal attack cooldowns, as represented by the orange bar around them whenever they hit, they can dash by tapping sprint mid-attack to squeeze in 1 extra attack on every normal attack rotation. You will see that when you do that, you will gain a slight yellow bar at the very, very end, which will help you increase maybe your hits from 5 per attack sequence to 6 per attack sequence. Ailments are statuses in which the enemy is stunned. You will recognize them by their symbols of downed, airborne, and injured. And they apply the bonus effects that are written here. The downed will increase 50% melee damage taken. Airborne will increase 50% range damage taken. When the enemy is injured, they will just be gaining tick damage for 2.5 seconds. The 2.5 seconds will apply even if the ailment is gone. So if you immediately chain afterwards, it will still be ticking for the 2.5 seconds that it was originally meant to do. When it comes to chaining, you can always time your weapon skill or the chain skill to cancel those attacks. That is, any attack which will cause major problems, which is like Sandy's tornadoes or the Viper's balls. Or Viper's spirit bombs. You can do so by delaying the chain skill, depending on the character and the boss you are attacking. Some bosses will teleport right after, or they will be invulnerable right after, or some characters' chain skills will be immediate, while some take a bit to happen. So you do have to learn when exactly you should chain skill to cause an attack of the boss to be cancelled. Depending on your team's type, whether it's melee or range, you should make sure to weapon skill on the downed or the airborne status. Since chain skills like Orcas or MK99s also benefit from those damage bonuses of the ailments itself. How MK99 does benefit from the downed, this is why you should always weapon skill so that it hits while the enemy is downed, or how Orcas or Camille's weapon skills do benefit from airborne, you should try to hit them while the enemy is still airborne. The Korean server itself is 2 weeks ahead of the global server, which means that they are already experiencing the raid even before we go to the stage of the raid. This is why you can find Korean guides and videos which show you the best compositions, the best possible teams, and the best strategies against certain bosses. You should pay attention to the chain order and the chain timings, as they will usually cancel dangerous attacks that the boss has to offer. You should use the information above to find the most optimal way to play your team in case there is no guide for it. Sometimes we just don't have certain heroes or we don't have certain weapons, and it's just much harder to get the damage output that you want to have, and it's much harder to find guide videos that are good for you. This is why you should be looking into the ailments, the chain timings, and possibly Korean videos of something that's similar enough but not too different to what your teams are. And this will help you make your team, your specific, maybe different than meta team, be better than it is right now.
So yeah, just to add to that as well, the boss patterns can usually be memorized. They have a set sequence or, like an order of attacks and also a number of attacks that they're doing. For example, we have the Marina that can do her whirlwind attack, so that obviously she can either do the dash attacks in the start or she will do the slices, and then you have a set of attacks, so you kind of know, if you play the same, your consistency will be near 100% all the time. Like if you do the chain in the order that is with the timings as well, and that's actually something that's maybe not talked about a lot, and that is the chain timings, which we have obviously been talking about here. Like when do you use the chain? Do you use it on the last second, or do you use it so it does actually benefit from the ailment there and the bonus? The best thing, depending on the boss, would obviously be to benefit from the ailment is more damage. However, there are those cases where you have to just delay the chain in order to interrupt the boss. So really keep an eye on that, either when you're playing and also when you're watching a video. And also there are some things that can be a little bit random, but yeah, there's not much to do about that. You just have to practice, and that's what we really want to say with all this. Use the practice mode. You have nothing to lose from doing that, and then you can kind of see what happens when you do this or what happens when you do that, or even during a perfect try there might be something that happens that you're not ready for. So that's really good to keep an eye out for. So on that note as well, take Viper for example, his spirit bomb there. What you can do there is obviously to interrupt him. Different heroes can interrupt this one. Take for example Lulleh, she cannot do it. If you delay it, the boss is going to teleport away and the chain is going to miss him. Kanna however can interrupt it, so can Scintilla. You would think that Bianca could do it as well, but it doesn't actually do it for some reason. So it's good to kind of know and learn which attacks actually do interrupt it if the boss is moving. That would be the homing ones that would actually go where the boss is. So yeah. And like we said, spend 3 minutes to actually look for those Korean videos, or even I sometimes also make videos, or there are other ones, Grim Joe, for example, to mention a few. There's plenty. So yeah, check that out, and maybe you'll even learn something that you had no idea about before. It happens to me too, actually. So yeah.
Balancing. This is by far the most important part of the guide, since it's pretty common to see in guilds similar raid scenarios to this. We can see a last standing boss. Some bosses are rough to attack because of their attack patterns or their element resistances. That makes them hard to attack, and members just tend to evade these bosses until you fall into a balanced scenario like this, and then everyone is now forced to attack this boss with all their teams just to kill it and get a reset. And that's not something you want to do, so it is pretty important to have balance in a guild. So, how to balance? It actually starts before raid even starts. You should prepare your teams for the upcoming raid. And a rule of thumb that you would need to keep in mind is that the overall guild damage matters more than your personal damage. So, it is fine to sacrifice damage to create a team for the problematic boss, like the ranged fire, if I must say, or there's this use a team. That could be very flexible, but you should remember that a team that's fully built is probably much better than a weak team with elemental advantage. So you should always play smart with your resources and see what will bring you the most outcome, considering the balance state or the rough bosses that we did talk about. You should look for Korean or Chinese guides or forums. They're mostly posted on official or unofficial Discord, the GT server. I think if you just ask, anyone can send it to you. Or you can look for them yourself in Dome or gamer.com. That's where I find this Chinese guide that will be shown in the screen. And that's a really good way to prepare for your raid, because you can know what teams that would be good to cope with a hard boss, or how to run it, basically. During raid, try to keep health caps between bosses as small as possible. One way of doing that is using a team prepared to attack a favorable boss on the tough boss, for example, Fairy or Sandy. This relieves damage on the former and puts it on the latter. So if you prepare the dark team to attack a basic boss, but the basic boss has heavy fire on him, you can relieve some pressure and have it on an earth boss, like shown in the picture, and that would be a good way of balancing the damage. That would lower your personal score, but that would benefit the guild a lot. If you want to hit an off-advantage boss, make sure to use a lead that matches the ailment resistance of the boss that you're hitting. So if you're hitting a light fairy with a water team, fairy is weak to airborne, so you might want to use Veronica or Orca lead. So, communication is something I want to really emphasize on, because communication is a part of any successful raid. As you can see, thanks for Lulleh for the screenshot, by the way. Good communication can lead you to have an easy raid. The bosses won't have huge health caps, and you would be able to manage your guild resources as well as you can. And basically, having Discord and just talking to your guild is awesome. A guild that has Discord and communicates well and knows what resources they have and how to distribute them, I think they would get a top 100 very easily. And you can use Discord to talk in the official and unofficial Discord if you have any question about your teams, about Colosseum, about Camazon. You can just ask there. There's also channels for lore enthusiasts if you guys are into that. It's an awesome community to be a part of. If you want to improve in raid, you must learn how to communicate. I can't stress this enough. There's mostly guild masters and officers have great game knowledge. I hope so. So always ask them. Ask them for help if you want them to make your teams, or if there's a rough reset or balance scenario and you don't know what to do, you should consider asking them.
So the last segment we're going to talk about is resets, and this is maybe one of the more important things if you really want to push the damage, because you could lose a lot of damage if you don't do these things, and that is of course checking before you're attacking the boss when it's low. You can see the example, the demonstration on the right side there, which is really good to show what we're talking about here. And what that is that you can see that the slime is on 15 million on the top picture, and the average damage of your guild is around 12.5 million. In that case, you don't really want to place the boss on 15 million because no one is gonna be able to one-shot it. And if someone goes with 12.5, you're gonna leave it very low on like a few million, and then you're potentially wasting a really big hit, and that's a big damage loss. So you kind of want to make it so that you have a margin of around 2 million. When killing the boss. So for example, if the average is 12.5, then if you can put the boss on like 10 or even 11.5, you see on the bottom one there, that would be a much better thing, because then you know that someone could actually kill the boss in one attack, without losing a lot of damage. So yeah, utilize the daily logs in game. You can see what damage your guildmates are doing, or you can just obviously communicate it on Discord with your DMs, and if there's someone actually organizing this. I know some of the more hardcore guilds are also having spreadsheets and things outside of the game to track this, so you can see previous damage or like previous days and that damage as well, because the log only goes for 1 day more or less. And yeah, you can also see who did an attack in game, of course, so you know who actually has an attack. So for example, if you have a really strong player, let's use the top option for example, you have a really strong player that haven't attacked yet, and they can do, let's say, 16 or 17 million on the slime. Then you can just ask them like, okay, I put the boss here, and then can you kill it? And yeah, sure, they say, and then you can do it. But you really don't want to put the boss in a really weird spot. And like I said before, you also want to check the attack before, not only the last attack, of course, when you do attack the boss. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for us now.
Thank you for inviting us, Lulleh, and I hope that this guide is going to be helpful for many different guilds, because it is hard to figure out the best gear, the best strategies, as there is no real instruction in the game, nor there is a lot of info about ailments for bosses, the best chainings. So I hope that it's going to be very helpful for a lot of people, as I said. And thank you for having us here.
Yeah, no problem.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to have.
Yeah, I really want to thank you guys as well for making this, because it's like I said to you before when we spoke, before making this recording, it's like this doesn't really exist on global from what I've seen, at least. I mean, Korea has a bunch of these kind of things, and I also really appreciate the fact that it's very like it's easy on the eyes, really, with the characters and those little fun things. So it's really easy to read, and it's very compact as well,
Yeah,
and I
there's
think
a
that's
lot of
really
Easter
awesome.
eggs.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
a lot of Easter eggs to it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So if you're watching, you can definitely see if you can find those, or word plays or so, that are like with the title, and it's obviously linked to the character or whatever they're doing, like about them. I think that's really awesome. Before we end, or before I say my goodbyes, we also have there's another guide actually that is more in depth, made by Yesk, and he's a guilder of mine now. And that is going to cover more hero related things, and a little bit about the heroes. You can see here on the screen now, it kind of looks like this. I'm just scrolling through it really fast. But yeah, you have some information which heroes are good, which are not good, and there's also a few tips and tricks on how to handle a certain situation, maybe on a boss or so. So I can really recommend checking that out as well. It's a really, really nice work. So like I said, it's a bit more in depth. So for those of you who want to dive a little bit deeper after checking the basics, then I definitely recommend you checking this out as well. But yeah, with that being said, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something, and I hope you find this useful. And yeah, see you all next time.
Goodbye!
Yeah, goodbye. Thank you for watching. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Lulleh is awesome.
Oh, all the credit goes to you guys. You made this guide after all. Anyways, goodbye everyone, and see you later, and hope you learned something.